Admiral Papp, let me ask you, I know in the capital investment plan, I did look at it, and you have, for the icebreakers, you have about $2 million, I think, to continue planning. I'm a little nervous, to be very frank with you. I know you have had to battle to get dollars into the system just to start the process. Can you tell me, in your words, where do you see that program going? As you know, I mean, you just heard even in the Minnesota region, icebreaker needs, but really in Alaska, what will be necessary to manage and alleviate potential risk? As we know, 2 years ago, a little less than 2 years ago, the work you all did to help us with Nome, Alaska, receiving incredible fuel, which was critical for their survival through the winter. Tell me how you see that plan. I'm concerned, as you can imagine, but give me some thoughts there on what you're thinking in the long term on it.
I feel really good where we're at, Senator. 3 years ago, when I first testified before the subcommittee, I laid out 4 things that I needed to do to provide icebreaking capability for the country. The first was to get the operating funds for the icebreakers back in the Coast Guard budget. That has been accomplished. We have the operating funds now. Second was to get a heavy icebreaker back in service. We selected the Polar Star because Polar Star had probably the least work that needed to be done, and I'm very proud to report that Polar Star is ready for operations. We expect to send Polar Star up to the Arctic this summer so that we can regain their proficiency. It's been a long time since these crews have been out there breaking ice, so we need to send them up to the Arctic to get some experience this summer, and it's my goal to send Polar Star to the Antarctic to break out McMurdo in February 2013 for the National Science Foundation.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? What do you think, what was the cost on that Polar Star to get? I know it was renovations and so forth, and do you remember roughly what that was? I don't.
It was in the vicinity of $65 million
and how long will you be able to, at this point now, see the lifespan of that?
Well, we have the operating funds back in the budget now for Polar Star, so that will help us. Our plan is to keep Polar Star sustained for at least 10 years until we get a new polar icebreaker. So keep Healy running because she was the only icebreaker we had, get the money back in our budget, get Polar Star reactivated, and then start the process for a new icebreaker, which I thought was going to be the most difficult thing to do. President put the money in to start this process in the 13 budget. Now, I realize it causes some concern when people look at $2 million in the 14 budget. Right. That's simply because the 13 budget was enacted halfway through the year. We haven't had a chance to spend any of that money because we didn't have it. So as a good steward, we said we can extend some of that money into the FY14 spending along with the $2 million to keep this process going. And right now what we're doing is a very thoughtful, deliberate process to make sure we reach out not only to the Department of Defense, but the National Science Foundation, NOAA, and other agencies, because this is not just a Coast Guard icebreaker, it's a United States icebreaker, and we need to make sure that we take into account all the requirements that are going to be important to this very significant investment.
Very good. Let me follow up. As you know, about a month and a half ago, we had a hearing, about 2 months ago, in Alaska that I conducted regarding the Bering Sea and the amount of traffic moving through there. And District 17 gave a great presentation. They do a great job. I give them, a lot of extra credit points. Not only do they do it on the ground, but when they stuck in front of a committee, they do a good job in presenting the risk that is growing and the risk in regards to the amount of traffic moving through there and not really knowing a lot about it in the case of foreign vessels and some of the work that needs to be done there. Do you share that same level? I mean, obviously, when you're on the ground in the district, it's always elevated because you're there watching it. Do you share that same concern that we got to really start opening our eyes to what's going on there in the Bering Sea and the amount of traffic that is unclear of sometimes its cargo or its structure of those ships?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. It's almost a funny situation. When I appear with the Chief of Naval Operations, he generally puts up a chart of the world and shows all the significant choke points in the world that the Navy is responsible for.
Except Bering Sea.
Except for the Bering Strait. And he has now started putting a symbol on the Bering Strait because I continually remind him. While drilling poses some challenges, really my biggest concern right now is the increase of traffic through the Bering Strait. Russia is firmly intent on opening that North Sea route as a major route for commerce. We've seen a fourfold increase of traffic going through the Bering Strait, and the potential for disaster, pollution disaster, is really, I think, more likely from ships colliding or a ship running aground, being caught in a storm, and becoming disabled. That's the thing I think that I worry about the most. Good thing is, because of the Coast Guard and our nature and the way we're able to operate, we represent the United States at the International Maritime Organization. We're involved with the Russians in the North Pacific Coast Guard Forum. We are working with coming up with traffic schemes for the Bering Strait that I think will work to improve security in the years to come as that route becomes vital to the entire world. So